Welcome back to Better Than a Pill. Today, I'm so excited to have back on Amanda Yue and Shannon Davis, who are going to be on the podcast a lot regularly now. Amanda is our functional medicine practitioner now, and she's been on before. She's been able to transform her own health, and her mission is to help others achieve health outcomes sustainably. She has found a product that works better than medication for chronic health issues, including mental health and metabolic health, which are closely correlated. And Shannon is our registered dietitian. For the past 18 years, she's specialized in metabolic health. She has experience in organ transplant, bariatrics, sports nutrition, and nephrology. And her passion is helping people shift their focus to insulin resistance in order to heal from chronic disease. So welcome, ladies.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Yay. And I am too. And today we're going to be talking about insulin resistance and high cholesterol. So we're going to get into this. And I know there are a lot of people listening that are dealing with these things. So I'm just going to throw out like a question, which would be, how does insulin resistance affect cholesterol?
Insulin resistance affects so many. If you can see my poster back here, I have insulin resistance is at the root, and it is the root cause for so many diagnoses, for so many symptoms, and cholesterol is one of them. Fatty livers, yes, high cholesterol. So insulin resistant is linked to so many chronic health issues. So what is insulin resistance, right? I'll take that. And insulin resistance is a state of too much insulin in the body. It's hyperinsulinemia leading to insulin resistance. So I like the analogy that I think Shannon have used in the past. When you pack your suitcase to go travels and then you keep stuffing and stuffing and then you can't close the suitcase. So insulin's the same way. Your cells is full of sugars, full of glucose. So it's too full. It can't fit any more glucose in the cell. So the cell's like, nope, no more. So I'm going to resist. So that's insulin resistance. So therefore, you have too much glucose floating around, and excess glucose will turn into glycogen and turn into triglyceride, turn into stored fat. And triglyceride is the harmful lipids that's floating around, leading to causing plaque formation. So the simple terms of it. So, and then of course, cholesterol, many of us just look at LDL. So when you get your lipid panels, right, it's like you see high LDL. Oh no, it's like your doctor want to prescribe statins, right? But LDL, there's two parts of LDL. There's the good part and then there's bad part. There's particle A and there's particle B. So think of the particle A as the big fluffy beach ball. That's the good cholesterol that's responsible for hormone synthesis, for brain functions. Whereas the other one, the oxidized LDL, the particle B, think of that as the rock or the boulders that can sink, that can pass through the blood vessel, causing plaque formation. So that's my simple explanations of how insulin resistant affects cholesterol. So I don't know if Shannon has anything to add to that.
Yeah, no, that was great. But I'll just add a few tidbits. So what's interesting is when we think of cholesterol, you have total cholesterol, you have your LDL, which Amanda just spoke of, and you have HDL, and then you have your triglycerides. When you go to your doctor and you get your panel back, most of the time practitioners go straight for that total cholesterol. And if your total cholesterol is above 200, like they are on it. You need to be on a statin. This is serious. You're at risk for a cardiac complication. So let's just talk first about that just a little bit. So total cholesterol is the combination of HDL, good. So think of H as happy, and LDL has been called the bad guy. Now I'm going to be the advocate for LDL because LDL is not such a bad guy. When you're prescribed a statin, this is interesting, statins lower all cardiac events. The increase, what their benefit is 1%. So they lower your risk of a cardiac event by only 1%. What they target is that good cholesterol, which Amanda just spoke of. Nobody really talks about that. They go after the good guy. And now what we're seeing is with statin use, we're seeing dementia. We're seeing type 2 diabetes. We've all known about the muscle pain, the headaches, the fatigue. A study was just released yesterday that now proves statins cause kidney disease. So we're seeing all of these terrible side effects for a 1% increase in your mortality. So there's that. But a total cholesterol, again, is a combination. What if you have a really high good cholesterol? That's going to make your number look bad, your total bad, but we want a high good. We want it as high as possible. Amanda mentioned spoke of a product that she's been on in her biography, and I've been on that same product. I've had high cholesterol my entire adult life. It's so high that my doctor was so quote unquote concerned that she's pounded me for a statin for the last, I would say 15 years, which I completely refuse. But she's sent me for a full cardiac workup at Piedmont Heart Institute here in Atlanta for a full cardiac calcium score, which is the gold standard. That was great. But the problem is, yeah, I have a high LDL, but I have a very high HDL. And what we should be focused on in terms of insulin resistance is your triglycerides, which come from your liver. That is the fat, that is the excess spillover, because those cells become resistant, Amanda said. The reason those cells become resistant, it's not because they're like, hey, go somewhere else. It's because the cell gets so big and fat. In order to protect itself from basically exploding and dying, it becomes resistant to preserve its livelihood. It is our body's protective mechanism. So as it rejects any more sugar, any more energy, because everything breaks down into sugar or glucose that we eat, in order to protect itself from exploding and dying, that fat has to go somewhere. That sugar floats around and it goes to your liver and you get fatty liver. But we need to be focused on that. We should focus on that triglyceride divided by your good cholesterol. So we want that we want triglycerides to be below 100, and we want our good cholesterol to be above 60. So you would take your triglycerides and you would divide them by HDL, and that number is going to signify, are you insulin resistant or not? Are you at risk? And we want that to be 1.5 or less.
Wow, that's great information for everybody listening today. Not just looking at the LDL, HDL, triglyceride, but taking that number. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to say one more thing. That is the biggest misunderstanding. I dispense a lot of statins. That's actually the number one fast moving medications at the pharmacy. And just from my own experience from my mother-in-law, who's been on it for the past 20 years because of high LDL, that it's affecting her brain function, that she's having cognitive decline. So she's showing signs and symptoms of Alzheimer's dementias. And I've been able to get her off of statins since January, since I started this protocol and put her on this protocol. Now she's off statin and her triglyceride has come down. Her HDL has improved a little bit. And her A1C, which is another one that we test for insulin resistant for type 2 diabetes, and that has also come down. And it's a concern. It's quite concerning.
Yeah, Amanda, you brought up a good point. So notice how she said statins were the number one prescribed drug. So if we go back 20 or 30 years, we'll notice that the standard for LDL was much, much higher. Now it's much, much lower. That's so they can prescribe more drugs. Okay. Now, we just talked about how triglycerides and HDL were much more important for longevity, for insulin resistance, for health, metabolic health. Okay. There's not a medication that lowers triglycerides. I guess there is one, but it doesn't work very well, and it's some nasty side effects. So it's not used often. Okay. So most people don't get on it. There's not a medication that raises HDL. There was one that came out years and years ago, and it did not work, and it made people terribly sick. So doctors don't talk about HDL or triglycerides because there's not a quote unquote medication to band-aid it, right? And my LDL is almost 300, and it's been over 300 before. My doctor has a heart attack every time she looks at it. She's, oh my God, that's awful. But I had a full cardiac workup, the calcium score done, and my insulin ratio, again, we want it under 1.5, it's 0.4. So I'm not concerned. Even though my LDL is mind-blowing to general practitioners, I'm good.
Yeah. You know what, can you repeat that formula one more time for people listening so that they can make note of that? That's really important.
Yes. About the ratio?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, so for instance, when my LDL is almost 300, it's 268, and it's been above 300 before. And so doctors get very scared when they see that. They want that number under 200. But what we really need to pay attention to is your triglycerides divided by your HDL. You want that under 1.5 or less. So if I take my triglycerides, which by the way were 250 until I started the protocol that Amanda and I both use. Now they're 50, 250 down to 50. Yo, yes, ma'am. My good cholesterol, we want above 60. It was 53. Now it's 122. So if I take 50 and divide by 122, I get 0.4.
Nice.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So mine too, we're prone to having high cholesterol in my family, especially my husband. We have reduced our triglyceride by 45%, both of us. It's just amazing. It's just mind-blowing that I've been a pharmacist for 30 years and I've never seen anything that can reduce triglyceride this much in a short period of time, in a matter of months, not years.
No.
And it's just amazing. So,
but no one knows about it. No one knows about it. Why? Because it's not a pharmaceutical. And we're the only country, I think New Zealand is it, in the world that allows pharmaceuticals to advertise on TV.
Yeah, because we're not on TV, so nobody knows about this amazing supplement.
It's a supplement.
This one's been around for 30 years. Yeah. It's been around for 30 years, and it compared to metformin. I actually did a video on this, comparing the data to metformin, and it's comparable. So it's a natural alternative. It's food. First of all, it's just fiber blend. It's a very high quality fiber blends of soluble and insoluble fiber. So it helps to support your gut. It helps to decrease absorptions of carbs and glucose. So you don't get these postprandial
43% reduction. Yep. And Amanda,
it's just amazing.
To touch base on that is, since we're talking about cholesterol, the Cleveland Clinic, which I'm sure most of your listeners have heard of, it's the top cardiac hospital in the nation. They studied our product.
They studied this.
In their conclusion, they stated on a population basis, which 93% of our population has insulin resistance. This product, our supplement, could replace lipid-lowering medication. That is a profound statement. But notice, no one knows about it and no one talks about it.
And that's why we're here today, right? Yeah. Because we can make a difference. And it's amazing to me because I know so little and I'm learning from y'all, but the power in this product, and we have the link for those of you listening in the description, the Feel Great system is more than for what I'm taking it for, which we're talking about like on our previous episodes. So so there are other solutions that are better than a pill with less side effects. Because even though they have those ads on TV, really the most important part of those ads for these medications, the statins or whatever, we're talking about cholesterol, is that the last part where they really want to skimp over, you can die of a heart attack, be crippled for life, have traumatic strokes. Yeah. So let's pay attention to those side effects too. So That's really important. And you're saying like we have a natural solution. If somebody goes to the doctor, and how do they determine, first of all, if they have insulin resistance? Now that we know that can affect cholesterol, what tests should somebody be given?
So most people will get an annual A1C, a glucose, okay, and they'll get a full lipid panel. So we get that. But what we also want to ask for is a fasting insulin, because Carrie, believe it or not, this is to me how sad this is. So a fasting insulin is a very simple, very cheap, inexpensive test. It's not anything extra. It can be added into what's already being your vial of blood that they already draw. Now, our body is amazing. Like I said, our body does whatever it needs to do in order to save itself, to be as healthy and maintain what we like to call homeostasis. And so we can be insulin resistant for 10 to 15 years before our labs show it. So when we eat food, like Amanda said, that elicits a insulin or a glucose response, mainly carbohydrates, sugars, fruit, starches, grains, right? These spike glucose. That's a normal thing. It happens. And in a normal response to that, our body releases the insulin. If we're only checking glucose and your glucose is normal, and then we look at your A1C, which is your 3-month average. And by the way, that's all doctors check. Is your A1C, oh, Carrie, your A1C is fantastic. You are at zero risk for diabetes. You continue to do what you're doing. Problem is your body, and I'm just going to throw out an arbitrary number so people can get an idea. Is your body squirting out 40 units of insulin to make that number to appear normal to us in the background? Or is it squirting out 5 units of insulin to make that normal? If we don't know how much insulin it takes to make this number look great for us and our doctor, we're missing the bigger picture. That happens 10 to 15 years in the background. We could determine if you're heading in the wrong direction. Nobody checks a fasting insulin. So I highly recommend that your listeners fight for a fasted insulin. And if your doctors don't want to check it, you can go to many places. I think it's ownyourownlabs.com and pay for it yourself inexpensively. I know there's another one like here in Atlanta, walkinlabs.com. It was $25. So most people can go themselves and request their own blood work. But that's a good one, a full lipid panel, an A1C, a glucose, thyroid panel, and an inflammatory marker. Now, those are just some extras, but if your doctor's drawing blood work, why not? But if you just said, Shannon, what is one test? I would say fasting insulin.
Okay. And for that test, I guess that what that means is that you should not eat any food before you get that?
Correct. At least 12 hours.
I know I haven't been getting that test because I always get my blood work and they never mention not eating.
Yeah. And if you're going to Carrie, really all of those that I just mentioned, you're going to get a much better indication of what's going on if you're all fasted. If you eat and you get lipid panels done, it's going to be completely inaccurate. If you exercise, your numbers are going to be skewed. I highly recommend that if you're going to have blood work done, please fast. And for me, you're going to be like, Shannon, you're crazy. But I schedule my lab work to anytime after 2:00 so that it forces me to keep my fast going because I intermittent fast. Sure. So I push it out longer so I get a better accurate reading. And I try to do it the same time every time. If you can, I feel as many variables as you can make the same, you're just going to get a better result. And then you can compare it each time is a reference of change, right? What is the change? Because one lab value to me means nothing. I need to see a trend. When I look at my patients, I want to see a trend.
Yeah, that's powerful. So we got A1C, glucose, full lipid profile, most important test, the fasting insulin. And then if you want to throw in a thyroid panel and a CRP for anti-inflammatory markers. And then
one more, since we're talking about cholesterol, CAC score.
But that's a test. They're going to have to go get a test.
Yeah. So
CAC is a special test, not necessarily in blood work. What is that?
Right.
They're concerned about coronary artery
Okay.
calcium score. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
If they're concerning about cardiovascular risk, that is one test that
that's like the gold
standard test. Yes.
Ordinary.
But that is extra. That's an extra.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's a CAC, coronary artery
calcium
score.
Okay. Wow. That's awesome. A lot of great information here for everybody, myself included, everybody else listening that we don't know. And definitely nobody tells you about fasting during your blood work. And I actually asked the last time I got my blood work, I said, you know what? Do I need to be fasting for this? And the answer was no, don't worry about that. Wow. But what we don't know.
You don't know what you don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. It doesn't matter how smart you are. So you don't know what you don't know.
That's exactly right, Carrie. And the reason I feel like most people say that is because most people don't fast. And we're in a society that is afraid to go without food. Oh my gosh, you mean I have to go 12 hours without eating? I promise you, you're not going to die if you go 12 hours without food. We actually function better as humans not eating every 2 to 3 hours. And there's 1 or 2 lab spots at 8 a.m. in the morning, and those get full. People like freak out. Oh my gosh, that means I have to go a little while without eating. It will be okay.
Yeah. And I can just speak to that on personal experience, having been somebody that ate every 6 hours 2 months ago to now doing this intermittent fasting, which I know we can do in different ways. For some of you listening that are frightened, you can even eat 3 meals a day. But for me, I'm doing lunch and dinner and then I'm fasting and my body's totally adapted. Yeah, it's adapted. And so it's totally doable.
Because I know you were a little hesitant. You were a little scared, and it's not what you thought, right?
My body's adapted to me. Like I'm not starving to death. My body's adapted during that period before lunch where I'm okay. Whereas before I would probably have already eaten 3 times or 2 times at least. So I'm just speaking on the behalf that what we think we can't do. And I was totally resistant to it. Absolutely. Are you crazy? There's no way.
We have to convince you a little bit there. And by eating every 2 to 3 hours, eating that way, you're keeping that insulin up there because insulin does not come down as quickly as the glucose. So once the insulin is excreted out there, it pushes down glucose, but the insulin takes a lot longer for it to come down. So if you have insulin resistance, it stays up there a lot longer.
Yeah.
So leading to insulin resistance. So we don't want to be snacking every 2 to 3 hours. We want to bring down the insulin so that your body can switch fuel sources. Your body can go and tap into your love handles, your stored fat, and bring that out and use that for fuel and give you energy and focus. You might notice that you have better brain function. You think more clearly. You have more energy when you're in a fasted state. I exercise in a fasted state. It's 1:30 right now. I'm still in my fasted state. I'm still drinking my tea, and I'm not hungry, and I'm not fatigued.
That's amazing. And your body's obviously adapted, and that's proof.
And Carrie, just one more thing on that. When we talk about insulin being high, like Amanda said, it takes about 4 hours to come down, but anytime insulin is high and present, we're in fat storage mode. So I know a lot of people probably listening struggle with weight. And so if you are one of those people that have been like, no matter what I do, Shannon, I can't lose weight. Trust me, I have so many clients that come to me like, I've tried everything. No matter what I do, I can't lose weight. I exercise, I cut calories. As long as insulin's present and high, you're in fat storage mode. You will not lose weight. So now you've cut calories. Now you're exercising more and insulin's high. Those are 3 bams to create just hunger like crazy, to drive hunger. And at the end of the day, hunger wins. Mm-hmm. And so speaking from where you were at, eating every 2 to 3 hours, you thought you were doing your body a favor, but because of that, your insulin was high, which kept you hungry. So the thought of going without food is hard and scary because we get very hungry.
Yeah. And we're conditioned, at least for me, being in the medical center, being at the Duke Medical Center, being around places that weight loss facilities, that's what they teach. That's what
I taught it as a clinician.
Right. In this mainstream world, that's what we hear. Don't let your blood sugar drop. You need to, in between your meals, be eating. And so like you get it ingrained in you. And so, yeah, which is another topic. But anyway, but yeah, getting back a little bit like with the cholesterol, what would you all say would be a good diet for somebody that has high cholesterol?
I'll just chime in really quick since
you're the dietitian.
Maybe I should know a little bit about this. Hopefully I do. Look, everybody's different. So everybody's going to have to tweak it to fit their needs a little bit. But if I had to recommend a quote unquote diet, this is for metabolic health. Number one, I don't care if you're vegan, carnivore, paleo, keto, cut out processed foods as much as possible. I think that's the number one thing. Anybody that can do that is going to see an improvement in their health. So that's number one. Number two, we've already touched on it. Incorporate some time restricted eating. It doesn't mean eating less. There are studies showing that people eat the exact same thing. They just chunk it into an interval and it's not spread out throughout the day. And they see improvements in all metabolic function parameters. Okay. So that 16-8 is a super popular time frame where you're fasting for 16 and it does count when you sleep and then you eat for 8. So that's another one. Watching your carbohydrate intake, controlling your carbs. We don't need carbs. We like carbs. Our body does not need, if our body needs glucose, it can sure make it. Okay. So really being cautious and being picky about the carbs that we put in our mouth. And I'm not saying you can't eat any. I sure eat them, but I'm choosy about them. I keep it like I have this amount I can spend, and when it's spent, it's gone. So I always recommend, if you are not diabetic, anything under 100, 50, depending on how active you are, 75 grams. If you are diabetic, 30 grams or less per day. Not net carbs, total carbs. And then focus on protein. You want around 1 gram per pound of your ideal weight, right? And you can divide that into 1 meal, 2 meals, 3 meals. And then focus on fiber, your non-starchy vegetables. Again, when you eat this way, that's one of the benefits is there's no counting calories. There's no weighing and measuring food. You just eat to satiety. There's nothing worse than packing up half of your meal and still being hungry and looking at it. Because we know, I've done it. You eat it in the car. It gets from the table to the car from the restaurant, but then you eat it right away. But if you eat till you're satisfied, then you're not going to snack. You're not going to have hunger constantly on your brain. And you do that by focusing on fiber, your protein, and then the last one is finish with fats. Don't fear fats. Your coconut oil, your olive oil, your avocado oil, your butter, your tallow, your lard, your ghee, all the things that we were told to stay away from, we want to eat. So really your time restricted eating, avoiding processed foods, controlling your carbs, prioritizing protein, and don't fear fat.
Yeah, that's great advice. And
just one more thing, like if you have to eat carbs, if you need to eat a little bit more carbs, just put that at the end. If you need to have fruits, put that at the end.
Yeah.
Don't break your fast with a piece of bread or a smoothie like what you used to do, right, Carrie?
Yeah. So now I do that. Yeah. Now but I didn't know. But my smoothies
you didn't know. Yeah.
My smoothies now my dessert. And yes, we're going to revise the smoothie I teach for my clients. But the smoothie is now like a dessert. And I got rid of like the banana. Who knew?
Yeah.
Like little things. Let's be picky. Like I had no idea. We think it's healthy. Yeah.
And this is extra fiber here. If you don't like to eat vegetable, if you can't get fiber in, I travel to Italy, to Greece with this, and it's so easy. You just mix this in a glass of water, drink it right away. This is my salad in a bowl if I can't eat a lot of fiber. Mm-hmm. So this is very convenient. It's very effective. So.
And what Amanda's referring to, for those of you that are just listening and not watching, is a packet. It's a supplement. Yeah.
Yep. The Feel Great system, which is
the Feel Great system. Yeah. When you use both of them, together, it provides a synergistic effect. Right. That's what the Feel Great system is.
Right. And that's what provided such profound benefits, Carrie, for my triglycerides and my HDL.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And
Yep.
this is the system I'm using. And so for those of you listening, it's a combination of a very delicious yerba mate, like we talked about before, which I love. I just love. And to me, like we talked about in the left, there's so many other benefits I won't get into. I know we're focused on this, but also the fiber drink I take before my meals, and that helps to absorb the glucose so that it doesn't
slow down the absorption. Yeah.
slow down.
And it all,
Okay.
and it prevent the glucose spikes.
Slow down the absorption to prevent okay. And that helps with the insulin resistance is what we're talking about today. And I'm learning, making sense of all this as I talk to you guys and you're on the podcast. And that also obviously affects our cholesterol.
Yes, that's what I want to say. It helps to reduce the absorption of cholesterol as well.
Yeah, this has been awesome, you guys. This has been great information. I know I've learned a lot, and I know a lot of people that are listening today have learned a lot. And we always include the link here. If you're interested about the system for the Feel Great system, it's in the episode. So you can check that out. And if you have any questions, reach out to us. Also, some of you listening today may be struggling with back pain, joint pain, muscle pain, stiffness. Are you ready to live pain-free and enjoy your favorite activities with confidence? If so, let's connect. So with over 26 years of experience in helping people improve their health and alleviate back pain and other discomforts, I'm ready to provide you with personalized insights and strategies so you can say goodbye to the fear of injury and hello to a life filled with more activity and less pain. So you can schedule your consultation today by clicking the link in this episode or by reaching out to support@movementcraft.com. And because you're a listener of the Better Than a Pill podcast, this consultation, which normally is valued at $195, is available to you for just $97 of 5% savings exclusively. So remember, we release new episodes every other week on Wednesday, and I truly look forward to having you join me then.